This is Gary Bombalicki and Shooting Star with the Blowback Laser Trainer. We're going to be talking with Garth Masey of Military Leadership Methods. It's the Shooting Star program with Gary Bombalicki, and we're talking about all the things related to the Blowback Laser Trainer. On the line, we have Garth Masey with Military Leadership Methods, and Garth and I have known each other for quite a long time. Also, our engineer and producer is the insane Daryl Wayne. Hello, Daryl.
Greetings to one and all.
Today, we're going to be talking with Garth about a whole bunch of different things. And first, I want you to talk a little bit about some of your background and how you ended up starting Military Leadership Methods.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Glad to be here. Look, I am a 23-year Marine Corps infantryman. I have been in since 95 and have had everything from platoon commands to companies. Had a couple of those. Had a battalion. Done several years' worth of deployments when you package it all up together. And all of that got me to a place where I realized that the teaching and training that we do in our corporate American world is done on knowledge. Like, we're trying to look for that silver bullet, that one piece of advice, those 37 steps to freedom. And people try to package that and teach it in a workshop or a one-day speech or just kind of these one-hit wonders. And I look at the way the military does their education, and they actually break it down over time continuously, and they're just constantly giving you the next thing you could learn and then how to apply it. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized the sales teams that I was working with when I got into the reserves and joined the civilian force were getting trained wrong. And we shouldn't be training necessarily for knowledge. We should train for fluency. So you learn a few moves, and you do those moves really well, and you adapt them in every environment, rather than trying to be the master at 100 moves and then spending time trying to decide which one to use for the right response. And it just delays too much time in decision-making and in planning and in how you communicate with other people. So because of that, I took everything that I thought was helpful from the military, mixed it with years of working in sales and operations and technology, and put together these programs. And we've been doing training programs for about 10 years now.
What is the reaction to some of the C-level executives that you're talking to when you come into the room, and some people may not have a clue what to expect when they come to one of your sessions over a period of time? Because some of your sessions go for 4 weeks periods. Is that correct?
Yeah, and longer. I mean, a company that's really invested in growth on people wants to do or needs to do shorter sessions spread out over longer periods of time, because the goal is not to give everyone a whole pile of information and then walk away. We forget that. And we've talked about the shooting, and this is your shooting show, and I would just point out it's like going to the range. Like, if I showed up and tried to shoot 5,000 rounds in one day, that's not making me better, when I could come and, 20 trips and do smaller amounts of ammunition, but make each shot mean something and count for something. It's the same thing with leadership. I mean, you need to be engaged in the conversation over a long period of time. So, when I work with a company, it's usually for a year or multiple years, or our short workshop programs that are kind of available to the public are 4 weeks. We come one day a week for 4 weeks. We have a lot of fun with it. Like, the military, right? So people think they're going to roll in and have to do push-ups, or there's going to be lots of yelling. Like, somehow leadership and Hollywood have come together to tell us that the only way to lead is commanding. You have to stand up front, and you have to put your foot on a rock and draw a sword and point towards the Northern Star, and that's a leader.
Is that how it actually works all the time, or no?
No, it doesn't. It never works that way. We default to that because that's the easy one, right? I mean, look, think about any famous American leader, American hero, and there's a statue of them somewhere. Their face is carved into a rock, or they're on our money, or they're in a park. And we spend a lot of time idolizing heroes in that way. And yet the people who are truly effective, they resist that siren's call of leadership, and they find themselves doing things that actually grow the people around them. So they are more visionary, or they build affiliations with people, or they instead of trying to set a pace that is unsustainable for everyone over time, they find ways to participate with people. Or the big one is coach. Like, spending time mentoring and coaching people, being fanatical about growing people around you is fantastic for an organization. It changes the culture. But we default to the easy one. The easy one we see, in every Hollywood movie and every made-for-TV action story. Like, it's the hero who has a cape and a cart or a stage or something they can stand on and look important. And that's not real leadership.
The thing is that the Blowback Laser Trainer, when we first developed the whole thing, we thought, well, it would be something that you would just have fun shooting in your living room and have a whole bunch of people over and have a good time with it. But it's totally taken a different turn. It's more now of a training tool versus just a fun toy. And that training tool has taken on a real meaning for law enforcement and military, police, even the civilian population, with the people becoming more aware of how important it is to have firearm safety training and how to use a firearm correctly. Because 80% of the new recruits going into police departments have never picked up a firearm in their lives prior to going to the academy. And that's because with World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, and Afghanistan and Iraq, veterans coming back, the numbers aren't nearly as big as they were for some of the earlier conflicts that were happening out there. And so a lot of people aren't trained the way they were using a firearm.
Yeah, and they don't get the exposure. You're right. And it's not just the police departments. I mean, there are, professional marksmanship instructors that come out to people's houses. I mean, we have fear in this country, and people buy handguns, and then they want to know how to shoot them, but going to a range can be intimidating and takes a lot of resources and a lot of look at me. I got bunches of kids, and I love taking my boys to the range, and we play 22s or 9mm and have a great time, but I just can't go that often because the fees, the cost of ammo, all that stuff, and it's a very real problem. That's why I think your idea was great, and I don't mean this to sound like an ad, but there's two things that matter in marksmanship. If you're really learning marksmanship, you're not just doing anti-cowboy shooting, but sight alignment, sight picture, and trigger control.
And sight alignment is very important. We call it the mind's eye because, and this is why it kind of goes with what you train in your leadership programs, and that is that a lot of things it's all mental, and shooting is a mental game. And so when you put up a pistol and you're aiming at a target, you have to have a center vision to look at. You can't establish that unless you do practice over and over and over again to establish that muscle memory, because there's 130 muscles in your hand and about 8 or 9 bones, and they all have to work simultaneously with your brain in order to establish that muscle memory or that picture that you see when you lift that firearm to do what you want it to do.
Yeah, but you don't get the reps. I mean, if I take the Marines out, and we go out on a weekend and shoot pistol, you're going to get 50 rounds, maybe 100.
Right.
Now you get all those muscles and all those bones and all that theory, and you stand around a snap-in barrel and pull the trigger dry fire, but people's imaginations wane very quickly. 5 or 10 shots at the dry fire barrel, and you're off to the live fire range and you get 100 pulls. So you're maybe getting 110, 120 trigger pulls for a range event. That's not teaching. That doesn't get sight alignment, sight picture. That doesn't get trigger control. So
No, it doesn't. And ammunition is very expensive. And some of the folks I talk to say, when I go to the range and haven't shot in a while, so I throw down 100 rounds down the range, really it was almost like wasting my time because I haven't picked up a gun in so long. And so by the time I get the 100 rounds down range and I start feeling comfortable, I have 100 rounds left, and that's it, because that's all I brought with me, or I just can't afford to buy any more ammo for that particular session.
Look, I'll put it back into something that I know, right? We were talking about leadership in the beginning. We have found in studies, we being smart people in lab coats someplace, that 90 to 95% of all the information given to us in one of those one-day workshops is dumped within 24 hours. Right? And what that tells us is, okay, if you pile information on people and then you give them a chance to walk away, they're going to lose a lot of the lessons learned. So we space it. We talked about that, right? We spread classes over time, and it's called spacing. And the idea is you burn a memory into your brain, and it's there, but the problem is you can't get back to it. So you wait a week or 2 weeks or a month, and then you go back to it and you reference the original information. Well, that trip down memory lane, so to speak, is what reinforces the knowledge from the first time. So maybe you got 5% from the first class, but if a month later, 2 weeks later, you do the class again, new topics, but you reference back to the original stuff, force people to remember the information. Now they go from 5% retention on the first class to 10 or 15%, plus they get 5% from class 2. But then when you do class 3, you're bumping up to 20, 25% on the first one, 10 or 15 on the second one, and 5% for the new one. And every time you're reinforcing the old memories by walking that path in your neural pathways, and then you're adding new. Well, it's the same thing with the range. If I can go to the range consistently day over day and practice basic mechanics fundamentals, my accuracy goes way up. I mean, I get better. I'm a gold medal division shooter in the Marine Corps for the rifle and shot and rifle pistol competitions. When we went and won, I won and my team, we won a quarter of all the medals there in the different competitions because we forced snap-in time, like sat at the dry fire snap-in barrel. Well, your trainer is like a dry fire barrel with feedback. It's phenomenal. I don't have to reach up and rack the slide. And so what I'm getting is application, which is great, but then I forget the lessons I learned, right? But then I can go back tomorrow and do it in my office or in the kitchen or any number of other places, and I'm getting that tactile feedback and I'm building. So I'm using spacing and time to actually build in deeper lessons on how to do it right. And it's that way with leadership. If you want to grow culture in an organization, you got to do it that way. If you want to educate your team, you got to do it that way. And if you want to be a better marksman, you have to do it that way. Our brains learn through those repetitions, but our ranges, the space available, how we shoot, it's not conducive to that. Your CO2 cartridges, what is it, $1 now? $1.50?
Yeah, they're $1 a piece.
Right, okay.
And, you could probably get them cheaper at some places, but you know what? It's a readily available item.
But I can sit there every day and say, okay, I'd go through 2 or 3 of those a day or a week. I think that what you've got, it reinforces how we learn. And so you're going to teach the true fundamentals of marksmanship, which means you're going to see the application. Like you'll see your shots improve when you do go to a competition or the range or in an academy with the police department. But you get that because you've got spacing involved, right? You're rewalking the neural pathways. You get muscle memory repeated over time. That's how we learn.
I was at a recent convention. Several law enforcement, high-level law enforcement officers were put up my Blowback Laser Trainer. And because it's a training gun, the trigger pull is rather heavy. It's 7 pounds for the first pull. And then it could go down to maybe 6 and 5 after that. But that 7-pound trigger pull, a lot of them, when they're pulling the trigger, they started flinching and moving the weapon before it even went off. And I thought to myself, that was amazing. So I would say that 30% of top law enforcement officers have a flinch when pulling a trigger. And they go, well, why do you have your trigger pull set at 7 pounds? And I said, because the NYPD has their trigger pull set at 13 pounds, and some have it set at 5 pounds. So I wanted to have something in between where everyone could be able to take advantage of the trainer in one way or the other.
Well, when the slide moves, I mean, that's what draws the flinch. My favorite game when I was coaching, my pistol teams, is when you'd come up to them when they're having trouble, and when they're not looking, you got to rack the slide and take the round out. Like you drop the magazine just a little. It's an old pistol range trick, but essentially they've got the magazine loaded, but there's no round in the barrel. And you're standing on the range, and you go through whatever your coaching tip was, and you give them the pistol back, and they go to shoot it, and then they have that massive jerk, like you said, right? And so it shows like, okay, well, here's your thing. You're anticipating, and you're jerking your shots down, or whatever you learned from that. But the problem is, one, you have to be able to pull that trick off without them noticing, because if they see you take the round out or hear it, or it doesn't work. I've played with your guns, and actually we're putting your trainers in one of our 4 weeks called Command Ready. So our Command Ready program, we're loading the trainers in because the things you learn in marksmanship about anticipating apply them to leadership too. I mean, how many meetings have you walked in sure that you understood what was about to happen or what side people were on?
It never happens the way you want it, ever.
Never happens.
Ever.
You've got to learn how to walk in and just sight alignment, sight picture, and then just smooth, easy trigger pull on whatever your project is, whether it's launching your pitch working operations, cleaning up, whatever, or really just shooting. Like, you've got to be willing to go in and just pull that trigger. So a little extra weight, great. It'll build up some muscle definition, I guess. I don't know.
Well, listen, we have a couple minutes left. Why don't you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you if they're interested in what you're doing at Military Leadership Methods?
I'd be grateful. I'm easy to find. So Garth Masey is on LinkedIn and Facebook. But the program that you're looking for is called Command Ready. It's all one word, commandready.com, and it takes you to the website. It tells you all about the 4-week workshops. We host them around different cities all the time. We rent out some warehouse space, and it's a kind of an exclusive thing. We don't let any more than 15, 20 people get in the class. And then, that'll also take you to where we do our corporate in-house programs. You can see some of the people we've worked with. So Command Ready is easy.
Right, and you have a lot of videos that are out there on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn as well. So for you folks out there that are interested in maybe purchasing a Blowback Laser Trainer, you could do that at blowbacklasertrainer.com. That's blowbacklasertrainer.com, and you can see what we have to offer as far as training tools to improve your shooting proficiency. We want to, first of all, thank you, Garth, for your service to our country and what you do for us, and we appreciate you every single day. And we hope to have you on another one of our programs to talk about some of the other stuff you're doing. But we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with us a little bit. Good luck in moving forward with your career.
No, I want to see these things go. I appreciate the ones you got me, and we're actually launching a class next week here in L.A. We'll have them out there. We'll use marksmanship to learn. We're going to make proud Americans out of all of them.
Well, thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing what's happening down the road and how that has to relate with the Blowback Laser Trainer.
I like it. Thanks, Gary.
All right, thanks, Garth. This is Gary Bombolicki and our Shooting Star program. So we're wrapping it up for another edition. We want to thank Garth Masey again, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Marine Corps Reserves. Thank you for coming on our program, and we look forward to seeing you next time.